Remember when a weekend in Las Vegas cost less than a tank of gas? You could get a prime rib dinner for $5. The rooms were cheap, and even if you lost at the tables, you felt like you won on the experience. But look at the skyline today. Something strange is happening. The city is dominated by a giant glowing orb that never sleeps. The Sphere. It is the most Instagrammed building on Earth, a viral sensation that lights up every social media feed. But don't let the dazzling lights blind you. While the influencers are dancing outside, the financial reality inside is a disaster. The lights are on, but nobody's home. Today, we are not just looking at the prices. We are uncovering the uncomfortable truth behind why this $2.3 billion trap is bleeding money and driving tourists away. To me, walking past this massive structure felt less like a vacation and more like visiting a wealthy relative who has secretly fallen on hard times. It is impressive, absolutely, but it feels reckless. It's like watching someone buy a Ferrari while their house is being foreclosed on. It feels like the corporate executives have lost touch with reality, building monuments to their own egos, while the average family can barely afford a night out anymore. Stick with me, because I'm going to break down the 7 massive pieces of evidence that prove this business model is collapsing under its own weight. We aren't just speculating. We are looking at the hard data. And make sure you stay tuned, because when we get to part number 3, I will reveal the real story behind the executives who are fleeing this sinking ship, including the one resignation that signals absolute panic behind the scenes. Part 1. The viral illusion versus the financial reality. First, let's peel back the screen and look at the actual numbers. If you open Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube right now, you will see the Sphere everywhere. It is undeniably the perfect viral backdrop. It looks like the future has finally arrived in the Nevada desert. A technological marvel that demands your attention. But here is the hard truth that businesses often forget. You cannot pay your electric bill with likes. And you certainly cannot pay off a $2 billion loan with viral shares. Businesses run on profit, not popularity, and this is where the story turns from a fairy tale into a nightmare. When we dig into the actual financial reports, the documents they bury in boring PDFs, hoping regular people won't read them, the picture is terrifying.
Sphere lost nearly $100 million in its opening quarter.
Sphere Entertainment Company revealing that the venue had an operating loss of $98.4 million.
In just one single quarter ending in September, the Sphere reported an operating loss of $98.4 million. Let that sink in for a moment. Nearly $100 million vanished in just 90 days. That is over $1 million of losses every single day. Over its first full year of operation, the total losses exceeded $500 million. To put that into perspective for us normal folks, imagine opening a small bakery. You spend your life savings building the most beautiful storefront in town. Everyone stops to take pictures of your window display. But at the end of the day, you realize you spent so much on the window that you can't afford the flour to bake the bread. And for every dollar you sell, you are losing too. That is the Sphere. It isn't just a slow start. It is a financial hemorrhage. It turns out that building the world's largest spherical screen is the easy part. Finding a way to actually make money from it, to cover the electricity, the staff, the maintenance, and the debt, is infinitely harder. It is the definition of serious trouble concealed behind a shiny digital wrapper. The viral fame is doing its job. People know about it, but they simply aren't paying enough to keep the lights on. And right now, the Sphere's financials are insane. Part 2. The Ego Project. James Dolan's gamble. So, who is responsible for this? Why would anyone approve a project that burns cash this fast? Usually, in a public company, there are checks and balances. Accountants run risk models. Boards ask tough questions. But to understand how a disaster of this magnitude happens, you have to look at the man pulling the levers. Enter James Dolan. If you follow sports, specifically the NBA, you know that name.
James Dolan, if you don't know, he's been a terrible owner of the New York Knicks for many of years.
He is the owner of the New York Knicks and Madison Square Garden, and he has quite a reputation. Critics, fans, and business analysts alike often describe his management style as impulsive, stubborn, and sometimes even dictatorial. The Sphere wasn't built because a team of cautious accountants said it was a smart move based on market trends. It was built because James Dolan wanted it built. It is a classic ego project. The initial budget was estimated at around $1.2 billion. A staggering amount, sure, but manageable. However, as construction went on, the costs ballooned out of control. The final price tag hit $2.3 billion. That is billions with a B. Any normal CEO would have been fired for a cost overrun of that magnitude. But Dolan pushed it through. He ignored the warning signs, because when a billionaire wants a monument to his legacy, he gets it. But here is the problem with vanity projects. They don't care about the market. They don't care about what the average tourist can afford, or what the return on investment will be. They only care about being the biggest, the brightest, and the loudest thing in the room. And right now, that ego is writing checks that the business clearly cannot cash. This wasn't a calculated investment strategy. It was an architectural flex, a massive gamble with shareholder money, and now regular investors are the ones paying the price for one man's vision. Part 3. The CFO red flag. Rats fleeing a sinking ship. If the massive financial losses weren't enough to make you nervous, look at the people inside the boardroom. In the corporate world, the Chief Financial Officer, CFO, is the most critical person besides the CEO. They are the steady hand on the wheel. They are the ones who know where every penny is buried. They know the real debt load, and they know if the company can survive the next payroll. So, when a CFO abruptly quits right in the middle of a massive launch, you don't need an MBA to know something is drastically wrong. That is exactly what happened with Gautam Ranji, the Sphere's CFO. He didn't just retire quietly after a long career, he resigned abruptly, right as the financial storm was hitting. According to reports circulating in financial news outlets like the New York Post, this wasn't a polite goodbye with cake and balloons. Aggregated sources and industry whispers suggest there was significant internal friction. Some reports even describe shouting matches involving Dolan, creating a hostile environment that no professional wanted to endure. When the person in charge of the money decides to jump ship without notice, it sends a chilling message to the entire market. It's the corporate equivalent of seeing the senior crew members quietly lowering the lifeboats, while the captain is still on the intercom telling passengers that the iceberg was just a speed bump. For us looking in from the outside, this is the ultimate red flag. It suggests that the people who have seen the real books, the unpolished, raw data, are terrified of what is coming next. Stable companies with bright futures do not lose their top financial officer in the middle of their most important year. This resignation screams of internal panic and a lack of faith in the company's future. Part 4. The content prison trap. The fatal flaw. But let's play devil's advocate. Let's assume the management was stable and the ego was in check. Is the business model itself sound? This brings us to the most overlooked and fatal flaw of the entire project: the content prison. To show off this massive 16K resolution screen, they spent millions producing a custom film called Postcard from Earth. It is visually stunning, no doubt, but here is the catch. Because the screen is so unique, so incredibly high-tech, curved, and massive, that movie cannot be shown anywhere else on the planet. Think about how movies usually make money. A studio spends $200 million making a blockbuster. They show it in thousands of theaters worldwide. Then they sell it to Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon. Then they sell it to airlines, hotels, and cable TV. They have dozens of ways to earn back their investment over decades. The Sphere has none of that. They cannot sell Postcard from Earth to your local cinema because it wouldn't fit the screen. They cannot put it on streaming services because it would look distorted and tiny on your living room TV. They have effectively spent millions of dollars creating a product that has a total addressable market of exactly one building. They have locked themselves into a $2.3 billion cage. If tourists stop coming to Vegas, or if they just get tired of that one specific venue, that content becomes worthless instantly. It is a business model that simply cannot scale. In the modern economy, scalability is everything. If you make something once, you want to sell it 1,000,000 times. The Sphere makes something once and can only sell it to the people standing in that one specific room. They built a proprietary format that nobody else uses, essentially painting themselves into the most expensive corner in history. Part 5. The Desperation. $100 for a movie? Now, let's talk about how this affects you and me, the regular people trying to plan a vacation. Because the Sphere is bleeding money so badly, they have to get it back somehow. And the solution seems to be, charge the customer until they break. A ticket to see that 50-minute movie, Postcard from Earth, isn't $20 like a regular movie. It isn't even $50. It can cost over $100, depending on the seat and the day. Think about that common sense for a second. $100 for less than an hour of entertainment. If you were a family of 4, mom, dad, and 2 kids, you were looking at over $400 just for the tickets. Now add in the parking, which can be $50 or more. Add in a few sodas, maybe some popcorn, and suddenly you are blowing half a mortgage payment on a single 50-minute experience. The average American family simply cannot afford that. Inflation has already squeezed our budgets tight. We are looking for value, not extortion. And the cracks are already showing. We are starting to see what I call desperation pricing. Observers have noted empty seats during shows that should be sold out. Discount offers are quietly rolling out on third-party sites. When a luxury venue starts slashing prices this early in its life cycle, it smells like panic. They priced out the middle class, the backbone of Las Vegas tourism, and now they are wondering why the building is half empty. It is a classic case of arrogance meeting economic reality. You can't charge champagne prices to a crowd that is increasingly on a beer budget and expect them to thank you for it. Part 6. The one-hit wonder problem. U2 is gone. Now what? But wait, didn't U2 have a massively successful residency? Yes, they did. U2 was incredible. They were the perfect band to launch the venue. But here is the problem. U2 is gone. And this exposes the one-hit wonder problem of the Sphere. This building is so specialized, so complex, that only a tiny handful of bands on the entire planet have the budget, the legacy, and the visual assets to actually play there. Who is left? Dead & Company? Fish? The Eagles? Sure, they have loyal fan bases, but the list of bands that can sell out 20,000 seats night after night at premium prices is incredibly short. Furthermore, creating the visuals for that 16K screen isn't like hanging a backdrop. It requires months of work by digital artists and costs millions of dollars up front. Most bands cannot afford that investment. Why would a band spend millions to build a show for just one venue when they could take their regular stage set and tour 50 stadiums around the world for a fraction of the cost. They are rapidly running out of ammunition. A $2.3 billion venue cannot survive on 3 or 4 aging rock bands circling through every couple of years. Once the novelty wears off and the big acts run out, what are they left with? A giant empty ball in the desert. They built a stage that is too expensive for 99% of artists to use, and that is a strategic dead end. They need a constant stream of massive superstars to fill those seats, and right now, that line is looking very short. Part 7. The final verdict. The Concorde of venues. So, where does that leave us? When you step back and look at the sphere objectively, it reminds me of another engineering marvel from the past. The Concorde. The supersonic jet was beautiful. It was fast. It was a technological masterpiece that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Everyone wanted to take a picture of it. But as a business, it was an absolute disaster. The Concorde burned too much fuel. It was too loud. The maintenance was a nightmare. And most importantly, the tickets were too expensive for normal people. It flew for a while as a symbol of luxury, but eventually the economics caught up with it, and it was grounded forever. The Sphere is dangerously close to becoming the Concorde of Las Vegas. It is a technological triumph, but a financial tragedy. It represents the height of corporate hubris, building something just because you can, without stopping to ask if you should. Unless they can figure out a way to break out of their content prison, dramatically lower their operating costs, and bring ticket prices down to reality, this glowing orb might end up being the most expensive tombstone in the history of the desert. It serves as a stark warning to other cities. Technology without a solid business plan is just an expensive toy, and eventually, the batteries always run out. Of course, this is just my perspective, looking at the current balance sheets and market trends. Markets are living things. They change, and smart companies adapt. Las Vegas has reinvented itself a dozen times before, from a mob-run gambling town to a family destination, and now to a luxury playground. Maybe this crash is exactly the wake-up call the city needs to realize it has strayed too far from its roots. Ultimately, the market always corrects itself. It is the basic rule of economics. If customers stop paying these insane prices, the prices will have to come down. The power isn't in the boardroom with James Dolan. The power is in your wallet. If we demand value, they will have to provide it. The Sphere might just be the hard lesson Vegas needed to learn to remember who actually keeps the lights on. You and me. So, what do you think? Is the Sphere a visionary masterpiece that just needs time to find its footing? Or is it a $2 billion mistake that will be dark in 10 years? Can the old Vegas, the one that was affordable and fun, ever come back? Or is it gone forever? I would love to read your honest thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more deep dives into the ugly truth behind the glittering lights of our economy, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.